Us this week are going to cover converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. And I want you to understand before we start working that these are all representing the same numbers. These are not necessarily three different things. Percents are definitely the one we've worked with the least so far. And as a reminder, you're going to hear me say this a lot. If you think of the word percent, that's like per century. And there are 100 years in a century. So we're looking for per 100. So whenever we're dealing with percentages, we're thinking of what is that number as a fraction over 100, or what is that number as a decimal to the hundredths place. A few fraction to percent conversions that I want you to have memorized are these five, and you've probably seen these before in your life. 1/10 is the same as 10 100ths. So this would be 10%. So if you ever see 1/10, think 10%. 1/2 is 50 hundredths. So that is 50%. Probably the most common percentage you'll see. 1/4 is the same as 25 100ths, which is 25%. 1/5 is 20 100ths, or 20%. And the most common rounded percentage is 1/3, which the closest we can get is 33/99, which is about 33%. And the reason why these are important is we can use these to find others. For example, if 1/10 is 10%, 3/10 should be 30%, because 3/10 is 3 times bigger than 1/10. If I'm thinking about 2/3, that's 2 times bigger than 33%. So this should be about 66%, or in most cases it would round up to 67%. But we can use the memorization to help us find some other fractions to percent calculations. So let's get to a few problems. For these, we want you to convert between fractions, decimals, to percents. As a reminder, fraction to percent is per 100. It's very important. So when I see a fraction like 4/5, I need to convert it to tenths or hundredths to make the decimal. If I multiply the numerator and denominator by 2, I get 8/10, which is 8/10. 8/10 is the same as 80 hundredths, which would be 80%. The number 1 and 25 hundredths can be written as the fraction 1 and 25 hundredths. 25 hundredths is 25%. So this is over 100%. So this would be 125%. This would simplify if I divided the numerator and denominator by 25 to be 1 and 1/4. 60%, 60 per 100, would give us the fraction 60 over 100ths. This could simplify to 6/10 by dividing by 10. Dividing the numerator and denominator by 2 gives us 3/5 in simplest form. As a decimal, I can do 60 hundredths as 60%, or I could do 6/10. Both would be correct. Last one, 2 and 3/4. I can multiply the numerator and denominator by 25 to get 2 and 75 100ths. 75 100ths is 75%. This is over 100%, so this would be 275%. As a decimal, this would be 2 and 75 hundredths, which we've converted a lot to be 2 and 75 hundredths. So we're going to do a lot of these conversions. I know I went pretty quick through that, but if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. The reason why the conversions are important is because later we're going to try to make a list of largest to smallest. So I think it's easiest to convert all of these things to percents or per hundreds. Then we can write them from order of smallest to greatest. So 75% is already 75%, so that one does not change. 62 hundredths, since it's per 100, gives us the percent of 62%. 3/5 is a little bit different. This would give us 6/10 if we multiply the numerator and denominator by 2. We know that 1/10 is 10%, so 6/10 should be 6 times bigger, or 60%. And then finally, 1 and 1/10 is the same as 1 and 10 hundredths, which would be 110%. If we're writing this from order of smallest to greatest, our smallest number is 60%, which is 3/5. Next smallest is 62 hundredths. Then 75%. Whoops. And then finally, 1 and 1/10 is the greatest. Let's do a couple story problems. Jordan is playing Prodigy, and he has gotten 24 of the last 30 questions correct. What is his current percentage? So we know that a percent is always part out of the total. So Jordan has gotten 24 questions correct. That's 24 out of 100, or sorry, not 100, out of 30 questions total. To convert this into a percentage, there's a lot of different ways that we could solve this. This symbol right here means divide. So if we did long division of 24 divided by 30, we would get the right answer as a decimal. But I'll tell you that that's not the easiest one in this route, because we can convert this into tenths or hundredths. If I divide both numbers by 3, I create 8 tenths. I know that 1/10 is equal to 10%. 8 tenths is 8 times bigger. That means 8 tenths is 80%. Therefore, Jordan got 80% correct. Let's do a couple more. Danny is shooting baskets, and he's made 4 and he's missed 3. What is his current shooting percentage? So once again, we want to do part out of total, but this time it's a little bit different. Danny has made 3 shots, so that's the part, or sorry, he's made 4 shots, my mistake. Don't want to skip out how many he's made. And he's missed 3. We cannot put the 3 down here because the total number of shots is 7. Now this time, 4/7 does not convert into tenths, hundredths, or thousandths easily, so we have to do the division strategy. So many people are going to do this backwards. They're going to do the 7 down here and then divide by the 4. That is not correct. You need to do your long division inside out. 4 divided by 7. And that's easiest if you say it out loud. So if you come up to me right now and say you need to do your long division inside out, I just dropped my pen there, I will give you 5 SP. So if you come up and say, for long division, you need to work inside out, I'll give you your 5 SPs. Now, when we are doing our long division here, because we're looking for a decimal answer, I just add 3 zeros right away. And we've done this long division before in our last unit, so I'm going to go pretty quickly through this. 5 groups of 7 gives us 35. We have 50 left over. That would be 7 groups. That's 49. Last group is 1. Now, I like to round to the hundredth place. So I would round to the hundredth place here. That would keep this as about 57%. So Danny made about, and about is really important here, because if we say about, it means we don't have to be exact. about 57% of the baskets. Now, if I took out a calculator and I did 4 divided by 7, I would get the same answer. It's decimal point 571428, so on and so on. And there are times when you're going to be allowed to use a calculator, but you also need to be able to do the long division to match. If Danny won't leave the gym until his shooting percentage is above 70%, how many in a row does he need to make? So we need to get above 70%, and we need to know how many in a row does he need to make. So right now, from the last problem, Danny has 4 out of 7, which is about 57%. We know that from the last problem. If Danny makes his next basket, that means that he has made 5 out of, there are now 8 baskets. So if I did 5 divided by 8, working inside out, I would find his new shooting percentage. Well, if I did 5 divided by 8, that would be 6. Once again, I'm going to work quickly through this because we've done these a lot before. So this is 62.5%, because there is no rounding needed for this problem. So if he made his next basket, he's up to 62.5%. If he made his next one, he would make 6 out of 9 shots, which is the same as the fraction 2/3. From the beginning of this, we know that 1/3 is equal to 33% if we did our long division. 2/3 is twice as big. Therefore, Danny now has made about 66 or 67% of his shots. So we don't have to do long division on that one. If he made his next shot, he had 6 out of 9 last time. His next shot would have been 7 out of 10. 7/10 is 70%. But the question says above 70. So his next shot would be 8 out of 11. And to speed us up, I'm going to use my calculator, which is about 73%. So this is where he started. So he made 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row to get above 70%. So Danny has to make 4 extra shots in a row. As always, if you have any questions, make sure you let me know.